Hey everyone. So, wanted to get into how to understand or just go through a training on building authority with social proof, essentially, and third party selling, the theory of third party selling. And so, the goal from this is to be able to increase the confidence that your prospects have in you and in your agency, and then reduce the perceived risk that they have when potentially engaging with you. So, what tends to happen a lot is that in a sales conversation for the vast majority of agencies is that it actually feels more like a pitch in order for you to be able to sell, rather than you actually being the advisor or consulting and showing them how you've actually gone about doing this in the past with prior clients, allowing for them to see that they're not going to be essentially a guinea pig, right? And it allows for them to really feel more confident in your abilities and in their likelihood that they're going to actually achieve that end outcome. And ultimately, prospects are not able to connect with the value that you provide. And so when they're comparing your agency to another, they are doing it based on price. They're not really sure how to feel confident because let's face it, they are not experts in this particular area, right? You are the expert here. And so they really do not know how to really understand how it would actually function. So what we need to do is actually place their belief system or their understanding in someone else's story so that ultimately that they feel confident. The thing that I see happen so incredibly often is that ultimately you're too busy telling them how it's going to work for them rather than actually showing them or articulating to them why it actually works and how it actually works, rather than just telling them exactly what you're going to do and then what's going to happen next, right? Or actually taking orders from them, which ultimately does not actually build confidence. It actually reduces their confidence that they have in you and actually increases their perceived risk, which then makes them more price conscious, makes them have a larger amount of objections, and ultimately does not have them feeling comfortable, which is one of the most important things that you have to be able to accomplish in a sales conversation, is allowing for them to feel safe and confident. And so let's think about it this way. I want you to think about it when you understand and you've seen someone else accomplish something in life, and you've seen them being able to do it and being able to accomplish that end item, right? So the thing that I want you to think about is that when that person has actually done it and they tell you exactly how they've done it, your likelihood and your perceived likelihood of being able to accomplish that because you've seen someone else in your same situation, your same what's the word I'm looking for? Same abilities, that if they were able to accomplish it, then so should you. And so ultimately, the thing that I want you to be thinking about here is you don't want to be fighting against human psychology. You actually want to utilize human psychology and how we actually perceive the world to allow for you to be able to make the sale and ultimately make your prospect feel comfortable, assuming that what it is that you're selling is going to help them accomplish that goal. So the thing here that I've recognized so incredibly often is that going first is scary. And I want you to recognize in any situation that you've had in life, that when you were the first person to actually do whatever it was that you were doing, and I want you to close your eyes and think about it for a moment, when you had to go first is when it felt most scary. When you had to go next and when you went second or third or 12th or even 100th, you felt a ton more confident because it was a road already traveled. Think about it in sort of the sense of a trail, right? That if you are going down a trail, you're able to actually allow for you to feel comfortable that someone has already paved the way, has made it safe, and has confirmed that it's actually safe. So what I'd like for you to do and think about here ultimately is understanding how this actually functions. And so what you'll actually do, and just one moment, actually, I'm gonna, in the actual worksheet that you have here, you're gonna go ahead and utilize what I'm gonna walk you through in just a moment in this worksheet, and you're going to go ahead and write it down. I want you to be thinking about ultimately a client that you've worked with while going through this. But so the way that third-party selling functions, and I'm just going to draw it out this way so that it's a little bit more sort of built out. I want you to think about it this way. So you have, we'll call him John. When you're in, this can be utilized in a verbal sales conversation, this can be utilized in written, this can be utilized in video, this can be utilized in tons of different formats, but allows for someone to actually understand how it was that it actually functioned. So the way that it would actually work through, and let's talk about it in a verbal format since that's the format that I'm currently talking to you in at the moment, is that you would say, I completely understand. So we were working with John, and John's challenge was 1, 2, 3. This is what the actual way that it was manifesting and what John was able to articulate to you and how something was actually moving along in their business. And then you have the negative impact. This is the feeling that this person had. And so you are able to then articulate. So, the challenge was actually having John feeling quite frustrated, really doubting his ability to be able to accomplish what it was that he was looking for. And so you actually want to build into the feeling that this person had, because ultimately people connect more with people when it comes to emotion. So you want to actually articulate the emotion that that person actually had. And then you're going to go ahead and hit objection. So 1, 2, 3. So when working with John, one of the things that he was really concerned about was working with an agency, because he had worked with them before. And he wasn't really sure that agencies were the answer, because he had worked with 3 of them at that point, and they had not actually been able to produce the result. And what he was really having an issue with was that he was starting to even wonder whether it was his business that was actually the one that was causing the problem. Because if so many agencies that had had success in the past were not able to have success with him, it ended up making him doubt his own ability. And then you hit solution. So what we ended up doing with John is that we understood the position that he was actually in, and actually went through and analyzed the reasons why John's prior agencies hadn't had the actual success. And ultimately speaking, it wasn't John's business that was actually struggling. It was, he had a great product and the market really wanted it, but ultimately it was the messaging and how it was that it was being targeted to them, and the way that the brand was being articulated to the consumer did not really allow for them to really be able to connect and be able to be remembered, because recognizing that ultimately not everyone's ready to buy right now, and you need to actually build a relationship with the consumer. And then what you want to hit is the result. Ideally, we want it to be as numerical and measurable as we possibly can. I recognize that in a lot of instances that it's very difficult for a lot of agencies, especially to go back when they hadn't collected the information. If you're currently in that place and you do not have measurable results to your creative, I'd love for you to comment below about what it is exactly that you do and the reasons why you believe you actually have issues around collecting information. It's more about actually setting the framework with the client than it is actually about measuring. Even with creative, even with brand, there's ways to measure and actually understand how things are actually moving forward, and allowing for you to be able to get to some aspect of a measurable result. So with John, what we were able to actually find is that his average lifetime value of the client ended up doubling in a very short period of time. His conversion rates increased quite significantly, and he actually recognized that what had happened in the past was that he had a lot of people that would interact with his brand but didn't actually remember it. So every single time they interacted with another ad, they interacted with another email, they interacted with whatever marketing channel that they actually had coming forward to that consumer, it was as if it was brand new, because there was no memory of it. So there was no way for them to actually build that relationship that allowed for them to ultimately make the sale. And then what you want to hit finally at the end is the positive impact. So ultimately speaking, for John was able to triple the size of his business in a very short period of time, allowing for him to be able to invest into the areas of the business that he really wanted to, allowing for him to actually take the first vacation that he'd had in a long time, because now he was able to afford it. And he ended up calling me and telling me that he now felt extremely comfortable with the fact that he was going to be able to send his kids to college, and just had this financial relief for him. And it was just such a phenomenal experience to be able to have been part of that. So I want you to think about every single one of your clients this way and we'll talk about case studies next week. And what I want you to do is to actually take and go through this exercise, go through a couple of them so that we can utilize this as the format and the basis foundation for your written case study as well. Can be utilized in a sales conversation when someone's actually saying, hey, this is what I actually want to move forward with, and this is how I actually want to do it. And then you can utilize a story to actually convey an idea. It's a lot more effective to actually communicate things in this way, allowing for someone to actually close their eyes and see themselves in someone else's story, allowing for them to, one, remember it, and two, actually recognize that they are not going first, increasing their confidence level, and ultimately reducing the amount of risk that they have, perceived risk that they have, in actually engaging with your agency. If you have any questions on this, any at all, please do comment below. Absolutely happy to help. Case studies and social proof is one of the most effective ways of actually making a sale. So I wanted to make sure that I'm helping all of you out and getting you the ability to be able to do that and utilize this really effective tool.